Where are your parents? Those 4 words, in that fleeting moment, were more than a question. They were a verdict. A child of color cis-itting quietly in first class. A flight attendant in a crisp uniform, arms folded, eyes cold. And a cabin full of silent passengers, as if all were watching, wondering, does this boy belong here? Liam Bennett, 10 years old, son of powerful CEO Ava Bennett, sat quietly in seat 2A. He wore a navy hoodie, clean sneakers, and had a small backpack neatly tucked beneath his seat. No one knew who he was. No label of privilege marked his forehead, no bodyguards, no name tag, just a first-class ticket legally purchased by his mother, like any other customer. The plane hadn't taken off yet. Passengers were still boarding. The screen in front of Liam displayed the airline logo, the very airline his mother ran from an office more than 1,000 miles away. He slipped in his earbuds, ready to watch How to Train Your Dragon for the 27th time, a way to fill the nervous space of flying alone for the first time. But then a shadow fell over him. Emily Collins, 15 years of experience, described as disciplined, assertive, and fix-it, as many colleagues whispered, difficult if you don't fit her idea of a proper passenger. Are you lost, sweetie? Her voice was sweet, unsettlingly so. Liam removed his earbuds and looked up. Number this is my seat, he said, pointing to the screen in front of him, which displayed his name. The ticket had been scanned twice. He remembered his mother's words clearly. Check your seat number. Double check. Be confident. But Emily didn't even glance at the screen. First class is for reserved passengers only. Where are your parents? Liam froze for a second. Not because he was scared, but because he couldn't understand why she didn't believe him. I'm flying alone. My mom bought the ticket. Instead of dispelling doubt, his answer made Emily frown deeper. Let me see the ticket, sweetheart. He pulled the slightly crumpled boarding pass from his hoodie pocket and held it out. Emily glanced at it for 1 second. It was valid. The seat matched, but her expression didn't change. How did you get this ticket? Did you hear that? That question, seemingly simple, carried an entire ideology within it. She wasn't asking because he didn't have a ticket. She was asking because he didn't look like a first-class passenger. Listen, Emily said, her tone now stripped of any sweetness. There must be a mistake. First class is for high-paying passengers. You'll need to move to the back. Liam felt his face burn. His throat turned dry and bitter. But this is my seat, he whispered. Emily stood tall, nearly 2 heads above him. Let's not make a scene, she said, enunciating each word, then turned away as if the matter was settled. Gather your things. No one in the cabin spoke. Not a single passenger intervened. Liam stood trembling. His fingers fumbled to gather his belongings. His ears buzzed. He could feel the stares from across the aisle. Some curious, some uneasy, some condescending. But not one voice stood up for him. In that moment, he understood what it meant to be isolated, without a word being spoken. He sat down in a seat in the economy section. The chair was hard, cramped, and reeked of sweat and spilled coffee. He opened his phone and typed a message to his mother. They made me leave my seat. That was it. 6 words, no plea for help, no complaint, just a child trying to make sense of what had just happened. On the other end, Ava Bennett had just walked out of an executive board meeting. A senior CEO, calm face, proud stride. But when she read her son's message, she froze, silent for a beat. Then her eyes turned cold as steel. She didn't need to ask for more details. She didn't wait for an internal report. She only asked, "What's the flight number? Have you ever witnessed injustice and didn't know what to do?" Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe that silence is a form of complicity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow this journey, because this is only the beginning. Liam received a new message. Stay where you are. Don't worry about anything. That was all. No anger. No promises of revenge. But Liam knew his mother, and he could feel it in every word. A storm was coming. He looked toward the front of the plane. Emily Collins was now serving wine to a man in a suit. She smiled, spoke politely, as if she hadn't just humiliated him minutes ago. Liam turned to the window. The sky outside was peaceful, but something inside him had broken. And at that exact moment, somewhere across the city, Ava Bennett, a woman who had once been excluded from boardrooms because of her skin color, picked up her phone. She didn't scream, she didn't cry, she simply gave an order. I want the name of that flight attendant. I want a full report before the plane lands. The announcement echoed through the cabin speakers in the same steady tone as always. Flight attendant Emily Collins, please report to the cockpit immediately. The moment the announcement ended, the cabin seemed to freeze in a collective breath. Glasses paused mid-air, eyes followed the tall figure with a perfectly pinned bun and a flawless uniform, quietly making her way forward through the rows of first-class seats. Emily Collins adjusted her uniform one last time before stepping into the cockpit. In her mind, everything was still normal, probably just a formality, maybe something to do with the flight report or a weather update. After all, she'd worked in this industry for 15 years. And for those 15 years, she was the one who made the rules inside her cabin. The cockpit was quieter than usual. Captain John Mason, a man whose voice was as calm as ocean waves, sat with his arms folded, eyes fixed on the screen in front of him. Co-pilot Blake tilted his head slightly, as if trying to avoid someone's gaze. And then, on the internal computer monitor, Ava Bennett's face appeared. Emily froze for a fraction of a second. Though she hadn't met her in person often, the image of Ava Bennett, the first black female CEO of Horizon Air, was unmistakable. That face appeared in training materials, annual meetings, and global campaigns promoting innovation, equality, accountability. But never had Ava appeared on the internal line for a flight attendant. Ms. Collins, John Mason said, his tone steady but noticeably deeper. You're needed for clarification. Ms. Bennett is on the line. Emily nodded stiffly. She still didn't understand what was happening. Ms. Collins, Ava Bennett began, her voice calm but laced with steel wrapped in velvet. I'm the mother of the child you removed from seat 2A. Emily tried to stay composed. Yes, ma'am. There must have been a system. Let me finish. Her voice didn't rise. She didn't shout. But it sliced through the room like a razor across glass. Every other sound in the cockpit vanished. Your crew didn't verify the manifest. You didn't check the ticket. You made a judgment. Based on appearance, Emily swallowed, then stammered. I thought. You thought a black child didn't belong in first class. No one spoke. No one saved her from that sentence. No teammates, no protocols. Only the truth. Bare, simple, undeniable. Captain Mason took a deep breath. Did you or did you not check the manifest before removing the child? Emily was silent. 1 second. 2. Then 3 words slipped out. No, I didn't. A long silence followed, longer than the distance from first class to the back of the plane. A silence so thick her palms began to sweat. Here's what you will do now, Ava said, her voice measured, each word carefully weighed. You will return to seat 2A, apologize to Liam, properly, sincerely, and escort him back to where he belongs, immediately. Emily opened her mouth. Perhaps after landing when... That wasn't a suggestion, Ms. Collins. When Emily stepped out of the cockpit, her back was straight, but every step felt heavy. She didn't look back. No one escorted her out. No eyes showed sympathy. Only responsibility. and the cost of a bias exposed. In the economy section, Liam Bennett sat by the window. He wasn't crying. He wasn't complaining. But his eyes, the eyes of a child trying to seem okay while carrying hurt, made everyone around him feel uneasy. A man in the adjacent seat leaned over and asked softly, "You okay, buddy?" Liam didn't answer. He simply nodded. He had just received a message from his mother. "She's coming back to bring you to your seat. You don't have to say anything, but you can if you want to." And just then Emily Collins stopped beside the row. "Mr. Bennett," she began, her voice for the first time void of arrogance, "there has been a misunderstanding. I'd like to escort you back to your original seat." Liam looked up. All eyes in the cabin followed. "Why was it a misunderstanding?" he asked, not with anger, but with a terrifying kind of clarity. Emily froze. "I should have checked your ticket. I didn't. And I apologize." The apology sounded rehearsed, like an emergency protocol, devoid of emotion. Liam stood up, put his backpack on, and said nothing more. He simply followed her, row by row, past the very people who had remained silent when he was forced out, and who now remained silent as he returned. He sat down in seat 2A. Everything was quiet again. Emily stood there for a few seconds, then said softly, "If you need anything, let me know." Liam didn't respond. He just opened his phone and texted, "I'm back." His mother replied in under 5 seconds, "Good. Sit tight. I'll handle the rest." And in that moment, for the first time that day, Liam Bennett no longer felt small. He didn't know what his mother would do next, but he knew this wasn't over. Up front in the cockpit, Captain Mason received a call from the operations office. "Effective immediately, Ms. Collins is to be suspended upon landing. Escort required. Full internal review pending." Mason nodded, his expression heavy. "Understood." Then he looked out the cockpit window. The clouds outside had thinned, but he knew a storm was forming, not out there, but within the very industry he had served for 20 years. The Boeing 787 was still cruising at altitude, but at an even higher level, where decisions are made through emails and phone calls rather than yokes and throttle levers, the foundation of Horizon Airlines was beginning to shake. At Horizon Air's headquarters, a gleaming glass tower in the heart of the city, the conference room on the 39th floor had never been this silent. Ava Bennett, the airline's CEO, stood motionless before a screen, sunlight reflecting off the windows and casting a sharp glow on her expressionless face. "Show me the report," Ava said without raising her voice. Ethan Brooks, Chief Operating Officer, immediately held up a tablet. A list appeared. Cabin footage from Flight 217, the flight manifest, notes from the flight crew, and social media posts from passengers starting to go viral just 20 minutes after takeoff. 3 passengers have already posted about it. One even uploaded a video, Ethan said. "It's spreading." Ava looked at the screen. There was her son Liam standing in the middle of the cabin, backpack in hand, eyes lowered to the carpet as if trying to swallow a stone. Ava took a deep breath. "Prepare a holding statement. No public release yet," she said, "and initiate internal escalation. Human Resources, Ethics Board, and Legal. Have you ever witnessed a system you trusted stay silent in the face of injustice? Leave a comment below. And if you're following this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. What's coming next? No one could have predicted. On board, Emily Collins was trying to stay composed, but every step she took through first class, every whisper, every stare, made her feel like she was walking through a courtroom with no judge. Lulu, the youngest flight attendant on the crew, approached with 2 glasses of water. "Need me to cover your shift?" she asked. Her voice was neutral, but her eyes were observant. Emily shook her head. "I've got it handled." "Like how you handled that kid," Lulu said softly, like a small blade. Emily turned away. She didn't know when her colleague started looking at her like she was the problem. In economy class, a passenger, the man who had been sitting near Liam earlier, was scrolling through his phone. The first headline popped up. 10-year-old removed from first class. Witnesses question crew decision. He turned to his wife. "Hey, that kid earlier, he's the CEO of Horizon Air's son." His wife's eyes widened. "What? She kicked the CEO's kid out of first class? Are they trying to go bankrupt?" The man whispered, "Think about it. If it had been someone else's kid, someone without power, would anyone care?" They looked at each other. No answer was needed. At the executive office, an urgent email from Ava Bennett was sent. To Executive Ethics Board. Subject: Immediate review. Flight 217. Action required within 24 hours. Simultaneously, HR received an instruction. Hold Emily Collins at the airport upon landing for investigation. Emily Collins knew none of this, but she could feel it. When she entered the galley to prepare the meal service, she noticed Lulu's gaze was no longer shy. She noticed the flight crew's tone had grown colder. She realized the plane no longer felt like her domain. "You were really called to the cockpit?" Lulu asked when they were alone. Emily tried to keep her voice normal, just clarifying some details. Lulu tilted her head. "What details?" "That first-class ticket the boy had. It was real. I saw it. I remember his face. When I was younger, I got kicked out of a movie theater once because I didn't look like someone who could afford a VIP ticket." Emily didn't respond. "You know," Lulu continued, her voice gentler but no less firm, "we work in a system. But when you use power to judge people based on how they look, you're not just working within the system. You become the system." Silence. Not the silence from the cabin, but the silence inside Emily. No one threatened her. No one yelled. But she knew. Something had shifted. In the cockpit, Captain John Mason received another directive. "Captain, upon landing, please escort Flight Attendant Emily Collins to the gate security. A representative from HR will meet her for an immediate debrief." He nodded, but a weight settled heavily in his chest. Mason had flown through storms, handled mid-air engine failures, and even evacuated a passenger mid-seizure. But this was different. There was no alarm bell. In first class, Liam received a new message from his mother. "Security will be waiting when you land. Don't worry about anything. Just walk out. You've already done enough." He looked around. Everything was different now. No one looked at him like a kid who didn't belong anymore. Some even averted their eyes, because now he was the kid everyone at the airline was talking about. In one corner of the cabin, an older businesswoman whispered to her travel companion, "How shameful. I was right there when she kicked him out. I should have said something." The companion replied, "We all should have. But at least it didn't get buried." Emily stood in the galley, hands clenched around a meal tray, her eyes unfocused. She could no longer hear the engines. She could no longer hear the passengers. Only one question echoed in her head. What have I done? At headquarters, Ava Bennett still stood by the window, looking out over the city. The afternoon light shimmered against her hair. She knew the media would step in. She knew the press would dig up every detail. But she also knew this was the moment to teach an entire industry a lesson. And that lesson. It would begin the moment the plane touched down. What do you think about Emily Collins now? Does she deserve forgiveness, or must she face full accountability? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and share if you believe stories like this need to be heard. The familiar ding sounded, followed by the usual announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning our descent. Please fasten your seatbelts." But this time those words didn't just mark the end of a flight. They were a warning. Not just of the plane's descent, but the descent of a career. In the cockpit, Captain John Mason watched the blinking lights outside the window. The wind was steady, the weather ideal. But he knew all too well. Below them, a far less ideal reception awaited someone on this flight. He picked up the intercom. "Emily, after landing, I'll need you to remain at the aircraft door for a moment." Emily Collins stood by the galley counter. Her hands trembled slightly, though she tried to keep her face composed. She nodded, saying nothing. Lulu, the young flight attendant, quietly cleared trays, asking no questions. She didn't need to anymore. In first class, Liam Bennett sat upright, eyes gazing out the window. Outside, the city slowly came into view. Neat rows of buildings bathed in the golden light of sunset. He didn't know exactly what would happen once they landed, but his mother had said, "Just sit still. You've already done your part." And for Liam, that was enough to trust. The plane touched down gently. The wheels rolled smoothly across the runway, no shaking, no jolt. But inside, the tension rose like pressure in a sealed cabin. When the aircraft came to a full stop at the gate, the ding sounded again. "You may now remove your seatbelts." The sound of seats clicking, passengers standing, wheels of luggage rolling across the floor. It was a familiar routine. But this time everything felt slower, like the entire cabin was waiting for the final scene of a play. Emily Collins stood by the aircraft door. Her hands clenched tightly, but her eyes had softened. Sweat glistened lightly on her brow. She avoided eye contact. She no longer gave directions. Lulu stood a few steps away, silent. Then the door opened. 3 airport security officers stepped in, not rushed, not loud, but their presence silenced the entire cabin. One of the 3, a black man with a serious expression, stepped toward Emily. "Ms. Emily Collins?" She nodded. "Per executive instruction, we'll need you to come with us for internal review. HR is waiting." Everything unfolded in absolute silence. No one spoke. No one intervened. Emily looked around the cabin, once her domain. Now, she was the one being led away. The same passengers who once avoided her gaze now stared at her openly. Some surprised, some satisfied, some just silent. Liam Bennett remained seated in 2A. He didn't show emotion, no gloating, no anger, only stillness, the kind that made people see themselves reflected in it. Have you ever seen someone in power suddenly lose all control? Leave a comment, and if you believe that justice requires courage, like and share this story. As Emily Collins stepped off the plane, her footsteps were slow, each one heavier than the last. No one said a word to her, no goodbyes, but the air around her said everything. At the gate, an HR representative, an Asian woman with her hair neatly tied back, was waiting, file in hand. She said just one line, "Follow me, please." Emily followed in silence, stepping through the door into the staff-only corridor. The door closed behind her, like a cold, final period at the end of a chapter. In the airport terminal, a sleek black car was waiting. Ava Bennett was already there. Liam stepped off the plane, backpack in hand. No security, no noise, but all eyes were on him. Some passengers whispered, "That's the kid. He's the CEO's son." Unbelievable, I saw it with my own eyes. Ava said nothing. She simply walked and placed a hand on her son's shoulder. "Are you okay?" Liam nodded. "Good," Ava replied. "Let's go." In the car, as they left the airport, Ava's phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from the press, internal contacts, and national news outlets. One of the first headlines: Breaking. Flight attendant removed after allegation of racial bias against CEO's son. Ava put the phone down and looked at Liam. "This won't end here," she said. "You become part of something much bigger." Liam sat quietly. He didn't ask what she meant. He knew. When someone like his mother said something was big, it wasn't just talk. In a private conference room, Emily Collins sat across from 3 representatives from HR and the ethics board. Her face was pale. The commanding presence she once carried was gone. Ethan Brooks, the operations executive, opened the file in front of him. "Ms. Collins, you are being placed on immediate suspension pending full internal review." Emily swallowed hard. "Your actions on Flight 217 have violated multiple protocols, including ticket verification procedures and anti-discrimination policy. Do you have anything to say?" Emily opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Just air. She knew. There was no way back. Somewhere else in the city, a video clip began to go viral on social media. A short clip showing Liam walking through the aisle, being removed from first class. No tears, no resistance, just a child being treated like he didn't belong. The caption read, "We watched, and we said nothing. Never again." Within 6 hours, the clip hit 500,000 views. Liam Bennett's name began to trend as a symbol of the silence that needed to be broken. If Liam hadn't been the CEO's son, would he have been returned to his seat? And if there hadn't been a camera, would Emily Collins have been investigated? Horizon Air Headquarters, Floor 42, Executive Conference Room. A large LED screen mounted on the wall displayed the top headlines circulating across social media and the press. "Boy removed from first class. Turns. Out to be airline CEO's son. Bias in the sky. Horizon faces reckoning after viral incident. Let him sit trends worldwide. The face of modern discrimination." Blue light from the screen cast a glow on Ava Bennett's calm face. But inside, she knew. This wave couldn't be avoided. It could only be ridden. Ethan Brooks stood opposite her, file folder in hand, his voice cautious. "We need to issue an official statement within 12 hours. The media is calling non-stop." Ava nodded. "What's the company's preliminary response?" Ethan opened his tablet, showing her a brief report from HR and the ethics board. Emily Collins had been immediately suspended. She was required to submit a formal written statement and participate in mandatory racial bias training. But that was internal handling. The media and public wanted more. They wanted transparency. They wanted an apology. They wanted a commitment. And many wanted someone to lose their job. Open question. Does punishment truly lead to change? Or sometime is a second chance the only way to make that change last? "Ethan," Ava said, her tone steady, "what do you think?" He hesitated. Honestly, she made a serious mistake. Her actions were biased, unverified, and public. If it were any other employee, not related to the CEO response, would still be strict. But this time, Ava added, it happened to my son. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city shifting gears after rush hour. Ava had spent her entire life trying to prevent this very thing. She had sat through countless meetings where people viewed her as the required diversity hire. She'd once been mistaken for an assistant in her own company. And now her son had been pushed out of his seat, simply because he didn't look like someone who belonged in first class. Liam sat alone in an adjacent office, holding a tablet, watching thousands of comments roll in by the minute. The video of him being removed from his seat had already surpassed 1 million views. He read messages like, "My son went through the same thing. Thank you for speaking up. She needs to be fired, plain and simple." Why does this keep happening? Liam didn't know how to feel. He didn't want to become a national victim. He just wanted a normal flight. But now his story was being talked about by millions because they saw themselves in him. Ava walked into the room. Liam looked up. "What do you think about all this?" he asked, pointing at the screen. Ava came over and sat across from him. "I think it's hard to know what the right thing is when the whole world is watching." Liam bit his lip. "Are you going to fire her?" Ava was silent for a few seconds. "I've been fired before," she said, "because of my skin, because of the name Bennett, because I didn't look the part." She looked him in the eyes. "I didn't fight for 20 years just to replicate the same form of retaliation, only with reversed skin tones. If you had the power to decide the fate of someone who hurt you, would you use it for punishment or to create an unforgettable lesson? Comment below if you've ever been in that position. And if you believe in justice tempered with compassion, like, share, and stay tuned for what happens next." "Liam," Ava said, her voice softer now, "what do you want me to do?" He hesitated. "I don't know. Part of me wants her fired immediately, but what if she just learns how to avoid getting caught next time? Not what she did wrong?" Ava nodded. Liam continued. "If she has to publicly admit, in front of everyone, that she was wrong and retrain herself, maybe that will make others like her think twice." An hour later, in an emergency communications meeting, Ava Bennett announced her decision. Emily Collins would not be terminated immediately. Instead, she would be suspended indefinitely, undergo mandatory racial bias retraining, and issue a public statement of admission and apology to be posted internally and included in the company's training materials going forward. Everyone was surprised. A few frowned, but no one objected. Ava closed the meeting with a final line, firm as steel. "A punishment may silence someone, but a truth spoken out loud, that makes the whole system listen." That evening, Liam posted a short video from his account. He sat at his desk, warm light on his face, his voice calm. "I didn't post this to get someone fired. I posted it because this happens. Far too often. Not just to me, not just on planes, but everywhere, every day to people who have no one to speak for them. I don't want silence to be the standard anymore. And I think, if you see someone being pushed out of their seat, say something. Don't wait until they're the child of someone famous." Within 8 hours, the video had over 2 million views. At the same time, Emily Collins received an email from HR. "Please submit your public statement within 48 hours. Failure to do so will result in immediate termination." Emily now stood at a crossroads. Tell the truth and learn to face herself, or resist, and lose everything. What do you think Emily will choose? And can a system truly change after one incident? Or is this just another political apology, like so many before it? 48 hours. That was all the time Emily Collins had to make a choice. Not between right and wrong, that moment had already passed, but between temporary survival in the industry, or a free fall from which there was no return. In her small apartment, a dim fluorescent light cast down on the kitchen table. Emily sat in front of her laptop, the email screen already open and marked urgent. Subject: official statement. Flight 217 sender. HR Horizon Air. On the table was a draft prepared by the company's PR team, a document full of safe language. "I apologize for any inconvenience caused. I acknowledge procedural errors in ticket verification. I commit to improvement and adherence to all standards." It read like hundreds of templated apologies Emily had seen before, and she hated it. Not because it was too mild, but it wasn't true. Emily turned off the screen. She stood up, walked to the window and looked out over the city below. For the first time in 15 years of service, she wasn't sure what her role meant anymore. Have you ever been forced to apologize for something you weren't truly sorry for, or worse, knew you were wrong, but didn't know where to begin? Comment below if you've ever faced that moment, and if you believe real change starts with the truth. Like and share this part. Emily sat back down. This time she opened a new document, not the company's draft, not by instruction, but her own. She placed her hands on the keyboard, paused, then typed, "My name is Emily Collins. I'm the flight attendant who asked Liam Bennett to leave his first-class seat on flight 217 without checking his ticket." The first lines didn't come easily. It felt like each word was a clenched muscle in her chest, but it was true. And after years of sidestepping accountability, she was finally facing it. "I didn't check the system. I didn't verify the information. I just looked at the boy." She stopped. The image of Liam returned in her mind. That calm face. Those eyes, not tearful but deeply wounded. The way he turned away when she offered her polite apology. He didn't need to shout. He didn't need to be angry. His silence was a mirror, showing her everything she had once called procedure. She kept writing. "In that moment, I didn't see a passenger. I saw a young black boy in a hoodie sitting alone, and I, someone who trains others in professional conduct, allowed my bias to take the lead. I am sorry. Not because I got caught, but because I made a child feel like he didn't belong, even when he did." Emily finished writing. She read it once, made no edits, offered no justifications. She hit send. For the first time in years, she felt something lift from her chest. The next morning, her statement was sent to all Horizon Air employees, from executives to pilots, cabin crew to ground staff. In the internal inbox, the subject line read, "Emily Collins' Statement, an Internal Lesson." The management system issued an announcement. "This statement will be included in our nationwide internal bias training sessions. It marks a step toward building a fairer, more inclusive aviation environment." At the same time, a redacted public version was released to the media. No spin, no spokesperson, just the truth. And a sincere, direct apology. Liam received the statement from his mother. He read it, sat silently for a few minutes, then said, "I think this time she understands." Ava nodded. No one can be forced to grow. But if they take one step toward truth, we should let them keep walking. That afternoon, during a national television interview, the host asked Liam, "How did you stay calm when it happened? You didn't yell, didn't film it, didn't even get angry?" Liam looked straight into the camera. "Because if I'd lost my composure, they would have said I didn't deserve that seat. But if I stayed silent and steady, they'd be forced to look at themselves." His answer spread like wildfire. The hashtag #, Look Again, began trending. A movement calling on people to look again at how they judge others based on appearance, age, skin color, or background. Inside Horizon, the Look Again initiative was officially launched. Every employee must complete a new training program that begins with Emily's story. All special ticket handling will be audio monitored and randomly audited monthly. An internal oversight board was established with representatives from diverse racial, class, and departmental backgrounds. No one could have predicted that a child removed from a seat would lead an entire airline to reform itself from within. Emily Collins no longer worked on flights, but she was invited to serve as a special training advisor under strict supervision. Lulu, the flight attendant who once stood quietly in the background, was now the lead trainer for incoming crew members. And on the first day of her new class, she opened with, "Some lessons you only learn by standing on the wrong side and choosing not to stay there." Do you believe Emily deserved to be kept on? Can a heartfelt apology spark lasting change? Or is it too little, too late? The internal press conference ended with warm applause. Ava Bennett had just announced the Look Again initiative to the media, a symbolic new chapter for Horizon Air, one built on transparency, fairness, and accountability. The story of Liam Bennett seemed to have reached a humane resolution. Emily Collins had written her apology. Liam had forgiven, or at least chose not to seek revenge. Everything appeared to be returning to normal. But the truth is never that simple. Have you ever thought something had ended only to realize it was just beginning? Share in the comments, and if you believe truth always finds its way to light, like and follow to see what comes next. A few days later, an anonymous email was sent to Horizon's Public Relations Department. Subject line: Emily Collins, not the first time. Attached was a blurry video clip filmed on a cell phone. Date: August 2018. The footage showed a black woman in a professional suit boarding a plane. Emily Collins is standing in front of the first-class section. "Sorry, ma'am, this cabin is full. You'll need to move." The woman holding up her ticket. "But this is my assigned seat." Emily replying, "I don't think so. Please step back." The video cut off there, but her final words chilled the room. "I know the rules. I've been doing this for years." Within 12 hours of the video surfacing, the woman in the clip came forward. Her name: Monique Andrews, now general counsel for a nonprofit civil rights organization. In a brief live stream, Monique stated, "I'm the woman in that video. In 2018, I was removed from my assigned first-class seat, despite having a valid ticket, and no one stood up for me. I filed a complaint. I sent emails. No one responded. When I saw Liam Bennett being treated the same, I knew this wasn't the first time, and if no one calls it out, it won't be the last." The news spread like wildfire. A new hashtag emerged. #, not the first time. At Horizon's executive office, Ava Bennett watched the clip 3 times. She was silent, chin resting on hand. Her expression is unreadable, but Ethan Brooks, standing beside her, knew this was a storm no policy could calm. "Ava," Ethan said, "she's had her chance, but if this is a repeated pattern..." Ava cut in. "We need full verification, and we need to hear from Monique directly." 2 hours later, Ava personally called Monique Andrews. "Thank you for speaking out," Ava said. Monique didn't hesitate. "I'm not doing this for attention. I let it go for 6 years, but seeing Liam, I saw myself. We can't keep offering second chances to people who only change when forced to." Do you believe someone can truly change after repeating the same mistake? Or does a time come when second chances no longer hold value? Emily Collins, who was then participating in Horizon's mandatory internal bias training, was summoned to a private room. Waiting for her was Ethan Brooks. "You've seen the old video of you and Monique Andrews, haven't you?" he asked, voice steady. Emily turned pale. I remember that flight, but I don't recall the details." Ethan interrupted. "There was a formal complaint, a report, and now a video. If you want to preserve any part of your professional integrity, you'll need to remember more clearly." Emily froze. What gripped her now wasn't the fear of being fired, but the fear of realizing she had once stepped on others and never noticed, or worse, never cared. That evening, Liam was doing homework when his mother walked into the room. "Have you seen the latest news?" Ava asked. Liam nodded. "Monique, she talked about what happened in 2018. If there are more people like her, maybe Emily never really understood what she did wrong." Ava sat beside him. "That's why I need to ask you. Do we still honor our decision not to fire her? Or is it time to do what needs to be done Liam looked at his mother. He was no longer the timid boy who had been removed from his seat. He now understood. Power doesn't lie in a title, but in the courage to make difficult choices. "I think she needs to face the consequences," Liam said, "not out of revenge, but for justice." Ava nodded slowly. "You've grown up faster than I expected." The next morning, Horizon Air released an official announcement. Flight attendant Emily Collins has been terminated, effective immediately. The company is launching a full review of all past discrimination-related complaints. A public note of appreciation was issued to Monique Andrews for bravely reopening an old wound for something greater than herself. Do you think Ava Bennett made the right decision? Or did she break her promise of second chances too soon? A spotlight beamed down on the Horizon Air logo, displayed center stage in the grand press hall of the New York Media Center. Over 200 journalists, reporters, and social advocacy representatives filled the seats. The event was titled, "A Seat at the Table, A Conversation on Bias and Belonging." A name that sounded gentle, yet carried undeniable weight. On stage were 3 simple chairs, and the first to walk out was Liam Bennett. No suit. No prepared statement. He wore a white shirt and jeans as modest as the message he embodied. A child once denied a seat, now standing with the silent weight of dignity. Next was Monique Andrews, a firm expression, eyes deep and steady. In the light, she radiated the presence of someone who had once been hurt, but no longer bowed. Lastly came Ava Bennett, CEO of Horizon Air. A woman now under the gaze of an entire nation, not just as a corporate leader, but as a moral figure, is examined from every angle. The event was live-streamed nationwide, over 1 million views in the first 15 minutes. The hashtag number, "A Seat at the Table," soared to the global #1 trending topic. The moderator began, "We're not here today to excuse nor to condemn. We're here to begin a conversation that has rarely been taken seriously. Who gets to sit where they belong, and who decides that?" Liam was asked first. "Looking back, do you feel you did the right thing by staying calm?" Liam answered slowly, "At the time, I didn't think about it. I just knew if I got angry, people would say I was overreacting. But if I stayed quiet, they'd have to face what they did." The room went silent. Many nodded. Monique was asked, "Why did you wait 6 years to speak out?" She clasped her hands gently. "Because I did speak out, and no one listened. Then I saw Liam, and I realized if I stayed silent, I was part of letting it happen again." Ava Bennett bowed her head. "I'm the CEO of the airline that both of these individuals once trusted. I can't change the past, but I can ensure we don't bury it again. If you've ever been denied your rightful seat, literally or metaphorically, you understand what they just said. Share your experience, and if you believe silence can be the loudest indictment, like, comment, and share." Midway through the interview, a journalist stood from the audience. "I have a question," he said, "for Ms. Ava Bennett." Ava nodded. "Go ahead." "Some people are saying Emily Collins isn't just a flight attendant who made a personal mistake. She's the product of a system that's existed for years. If that's true, did firing her solve anything?" The entire room held its breath. It was a question with no easy answer. Ava straightened her posture. "I didn't fire her to appease public opinion. I did it because she was given a chance, and she didn't speak the truth until she was caught. But yes, Emily didn't build the system. She was someone who chose not to challenge it, even when she had the chance." Just then, the communications assistant stepped onto the stage and whispered to the moderator. The host nodded, then turned to the audience. "We've just received an important message. An email from a close relative of Emily Collins, which we've been permitted to share. It may shift how we understand her as a person. The lights dimmed, a large screen lit up. Words appeared. I'm Sarah Collins, Emily's younger sister. She hasn't spoken about this, but I will. Not to defend her, but to complete the picture. The letter revealed that Emily and Sarah grew up in a small town in Georgia, where their white parents once kicked out their daughter's black friends for entering their home. Emily was punished in school for talking too closely with a black boy. Their mother used to say, a proper girl doesn't share a table with someone like that. Emily escaped that town by becoming a flight attendant, hoping to see a different world, but that world didn't erase prejudice. It just hid it better. The room fell silent. Ava Bennett was the first to speak. That story doesn't change the consequences of her actions, but it reminds us of something. No one is born with prejudice, but no one is obliged to keep it their whole life either. The interview concluded with extended applause. Liam stepped off stage, turning back for a moment to look at the empty chair behind him. He didn't see Emily there, but he knew. Forgiveness is not about erasing responsibility. It's about offering someone the chance to make it right. Following the event, multiple airlines joined the Look Again campaign. Schools began including Liam's story in ethics curricula, and Horizon formally appointed Monique Andrews as an independent advisor for internal policy reform. Have you ever witnessed someone truly grow after making a mistake? What made their transformation believable to you? A week after the public interview, the media storm still hadn't settled. Major news outlets ran headlines like, Child Hero Forces Aviation Industry to Re-Examine Itself. Emily Collins, Termination is not the end, but the start of the truth. Look Again becomes nationwide mandatory training program. Social media was buzzing. Podcasts, talk shows, and discussion panels. They all mentioned one name, Liam Bennett. But in a small apartment on the outskirts of Newark, Emily Collins was living in a completely different world. No interviews, no spotlight, no open doors were waiting for her return. Just silence, and just herself. Have you ever found yourself unsure of who you are after losing a job, a title, or an identity you once believed was your real self? Share your story below. And if you believe that losing everything can sometimes be the start of finding yourself, like and follow to continue this journey with us. The living room where Emily sat was shockingly plain now. A worn-out coffee table, a frayed armchair, and a suitcase, still unopened, from her last flight. She held a cup of cold tea in her hands, motionless for 30 minutes, staring at a half-written email draft. Subject: no excuses, just this. To Liam Bennett. She had written and rewritten it nearly 20 times, deleted, rewrote. She still didn't know how to begin. I'm sorry. Too hollow. I didn't mean to. No one would believe it. Thank you for... Felt like avoidance. She leaned back in the chair, took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and typed, I never expected to write this. But that's the problem, isn't it? People like me never expect to be called out. We think we're nice enough, not like those other people, so we must be fine. But I wasn't fine. And you... They were brave enough to let me see that. Emily sat still after typing. For the first time, she didn't reread it. She just hit send before she could hesitate. No reply came. She didn't expect one. Because this time she wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was simply sending a piece of the truth. Meanwhile, at the Horizon CEO's office, Ava Bennett closed her laptop after a meeting with the Federal Department of Transportation. The Look Again program was now being proposed for industry-wide adoption beyond just aviation, she sighed. In front of her wasn't company paperwork, but a student file, Liam's transfer request. He wanted to leave New York, not out of fear, not to escape, but he wanted to be a normal kid again. That night, Ava sat with her son at the kitchen table. It was raining. The sound of raindrops on the metal roof pulsed like a quiet heartbeat. "Are you sure?" she asked. Liam nodded. "I know people want me to keep representing, but I don't want my whole childhood to be a campaign. I want friends, field trips. I want to come home without being interviewed. I've done my part, and I think that's enough." If you've ever become the face of something, even when you didn't ask for the role, you'll understand how Liam feels. Share your thoughts. And if you've ever stepped away from the spotlight just to return to yourself, you're not alone. Ava nodded. "You're right. Being strong doesn't mean holding on forever. Sometimes strength is knowing when it's enough and letting go." Liam smiled. He knew his mother understood. A few days later, Emily received a letter, not from Liam, but from Lulu, the young flight attendant who had been on that fateful flight. Just one line: "No one's born perfect, but everyone deserves a fresh start, if they truly want it." Emily stared at the words, and for the first time in weeks she opened the suitcase. Inside wasn't just her uniform, name badge, or logbook, but a piece of her former self, now ready to be let go. The 2025 International Aviation Summit, held in Geneva, Switzerland, was anticipated as one of the most important events in the industry for an entire decade. CEOs, flight safety experts, aviation law delegates, and social justice advocates from over 70 countries were in attendance. At the top of the guest list, Ava Bennett, CEO of Horizon Air, a woman who not only led her airline through a seismic scandal but transformed it into a moment of industry-wide reform. But there was another name, absent from the official program, who would make the entire hall rise to their feet by the end of the day. A person was invited merely to sit in the audience. The event opened with a keynote speech from Ava Bennett. "A few months ago, I sat across from my son and asked, 'What do you want to do next?' And he said, 'I want to stop being a symbol. I just want to live my life as a kid.' I agreed, but I also told him, 'When you're ready, come back on your terms, if you choose to.'" Liam Bennett now sat in the third row among seasoned experts and airline delegates. He wore a gray suit, no bow tie, no tie, hands clasped. He thought he was only there to support his mother. He didn't know his name had just been printed on the placard, waiting at the podium. Ava looked toward her son. "And today, I believe, he's ready." She gave a slight nod. The event host walked to the center of the stage. "We are honored to recognize the youngest person ever to help reform internal policy across an entire industry. Not through leadership credentials, but through silence at the right moment. Please welcome our honorary award recipient, Liam Bennett." The entire hall rose in a standing ovation. A spotlight illuminated a boy walking toward the stage. No script, no laptop, no slideshow. Just his real voice. Liam stood at the mic. His eyes scanned the room. He saw his mother, her pride tempered by restraint, Monique Andrews smiling with deep respect. Lulu, once a quiet flight attendant, is now an international HR trainer. And in a far corner, Emily Collins, seated discreetly, unnoticed by most, her eyes fixed on the stage. Liam began. "I didn't come here to teach adults how to do their jobs. I'm just a kid. But on Flight 217, I was told I didn't belong. Even though I had a ticket, a reason, and everything required, and no one said a word. But that wasn't the part that hurt the most. The worst part was, how familiar it was to so many others, and how everyone just kept their heads down. The room was silent, no coughing, no interruptions. He continued, "I don't want to be the spokesperson for justice. I just want this. The next time you see someone being mistreated because they don't look like you, don't wait for a camera. Don't wait until it's the child of someone famous. Don't wait until you're the one pushed out of your seat. Stand up, say something, do something, because if you don't, then you're part of the problem." The room erupted into thunderous applause, not because Liam was eloquent, not because he spoke flawlessly, but because truth doesn't need a loud voice. It just needs to be spoken from a real place. Have you ever been told you don't belong here, even when you had every right, every credential, every ounce of belief that you did? If you've ever heard that, know this: you're not alone, and you were never wrong. Share your story below. And if you believe small acts can move entire systems, like and share this story. A week after the summit, Ava received a very special email. Sender: Emily Collins. Subject: I don't want to come back, I want to begin again. Its message was brief. I'm currently enrolled in a program on dignity recovery and unconscious bias at the University of Colorado. Not to get rehired, but because, for once in my life, I want to do something I'm not being forced to do. Ava didn't reply, but she printed the letter and pinned it to the office wall, right next to a photo of Liam speaking at the summit. On one side, the person who once caused harm. On the other hand, the one who was hurt. And in the middle, a choice: to stop, or to start again. The story ends like this. Liam returned to his new school. No one recognized him as the boy from TV. He played basketball, wrote in his journal, did group projects. He lived exactly as he once wished, just being a kid. At Horizon Air, the Look Again program became a new industry standard, adopted by 5 other global airlines. Monique was hired as a permanent advisor. Lulu became the lead trainer. And on the first slide of her training, one quote appears: "Silence is not always weakness. Sometimes it is the loudest voice, when spoken at the right moment." Liam Bennett, age 10. Final message. From the story of Liam. The story of Liam Bennett didn't begin with a speech. It didn't end with a verdict. It opened a door for all of us to look again at our behavior, at our silence, and at the seats we've denied others, simply because we didn't know, or refused to know, that they belong there. Who will you be on the next flight? The one who stands up, or the one who stays silent? Core message of the story. The story of Liam Bennett isn't just about one isolated incident of discrimination on a plane. It's a mirror held up to society. A society where people are often judged as worthy of a seat, not by ticket, law, or effort, but by prejudice. And when those prejudices are normalized over decades, the most dangerous thing is this: the wrongdoer no longer thinks they're wrong. Liam, a 10-year-old child, didn't scream. He didn't resist loudly. He simply stayed silent. But in a world that's already too loud and too defensive, that timely silence became the most powerful accusation of all. 7 real lessons from the story 1. Wearing a uniform doesn't give you the right to remove someone from the seat they've earned. Emily Collins was a seasoned flight attendant, but experience doesn't exempt accountability. The more senior you are, the more you must understand the weight of your actions. Lesson: authority is not a privilege, it's a responsibility. 2. Silence can also be action if placed at the right moment. Liam didn't yell, didn't film, didn't file a lawsuit, but his quiet composure sparked one of the strongest waves of reckoning. Lesson: you don't need loud words to create change. Just the right words at the right time. 3. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means giving space for responsibility. Ava Bennett, as CEO, could have fired Emily on the spot, but she offered a second chance, on the condition that Emily confront her actions. That's what made Emily's statement more than an apology. It became a starting point. Lesson: forgiveness isn't weakness. It's a test of awakening. 4. No one is born with prejudice, but everyone has the power to let it go. Emily didn't invent her biases. She was taught them by family, by environment, by society. But growing up means not dragging old lies into a new life. Lesson: you're not responsible for where you were born, but you are for where you choose to stand. 5. One honest act can shake an entire system, if it's real. It wasn't a campaign, not a law, not a media stunt. It was one child's quiet resolve, met with responsible adults, that rewrote policies at Horizon and challenged an entire industry. Lesson: systemic change begins with people brave enough to stop pretending. 6. Becoming a symbol isn't always a choice, but stepping back can be an act of courage, too. Liam never asked to be the face of justice. He just wanted to sit in his rightful seat. And when the world turned him into a symbol, he knew when to step away, to protect his childhood and let adults carry the torch. Lesson: stepping back isn't surrender. It's self-preservation, so you can grow whole. 7. The truth doesn't hurt us. It frees us from illusion. From Ava to Emily, from Liam to Monique, change only happened when they dared to face the truth. Even when it was painful, even when it came late. Lesson: no beginning is strong if it doesn't begin with truth. The core call: look again. The message: look again isn't just for flight crews. It's for everyone in society. Before you judge someone, pause and look again. Are you seeing them with your eyes or with your bias? Are you judging their seat or their worth? Ultimately, Liam Bennett's story teaches us justice is not about pushing someone down. It's about ensuring everyone can sit where they rightfully belong. And if you've ever stayed silent while someone was pushed down, today you can choose to say something. Start with one thing. Look again. Have you ever seen someone get pushed out of their seat just because of bias? Have you ever stayed silent and regretted not speaking up? Leave a comment and share your story. Your experience might give someone else the courage to speak out. If you believe that small actions can shift entire systems, share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to, if you believe justice begins with looking again.